Polite Inquiries, Andy's bed. Dennis Gibbo says, without using the benefit of hindsight, what did you think of Finch's innings and dismissal?
The innings I thought was fine, not his best, but he battled away the valuable innings. People seem to want massive pyrotechnics all the time. It established a platform. I mean, he did look like he was basically playing a different sport to Steve Smith. Steve Smith is playing a different sport to most batsmen on the planet at the moment.
I would have thought it's your kind of innings. It was kind of dour and, important, but no one really wanted to watch it. I think the thing with Aaron Finch is he hasn't made runs since the first game. And he just needed runs, and he stood out there and they made over 300, so it's fine, but he wasn't great.
No.
Ben Pobji says, Smith or Bradman? Who would you rather have in your team, or Baird in this situation?
Well, in my team at the moment, on form, I'd go with Smith. Bradman, unquestionably, probably the superior player in his day, but his day was now some time ago. So I'll just always go for the live player over the dead one. He's got magic hands. I think I think he literally has. I think he might have bought them on eBay. It's quite possible.
Get back in bed, honey. Paul Browning says, a colleague just asked me the question, when did New Zealand get good at cricket? Can you provide the answer? It was probably just after Brendan McCullum took over, but not right at that time, because didn't they get bowled out for -5 against South Africa at one stage?
Yeah, they did -6, I think it was.
Yeah, so
it removed Mark's artistic impression.
Yeah, I think when Alan Donald started coaching Tim Southey, that definitely helped.
Right.
And Trent Bolt turning up definitely helped.
It was definitely after 1955 when England bowled them out for 26. Let's cling to the glory days. Come on.
John O'Hain says, was that the worst effort at a run chase ever?
No, it clearly wasn't.
I mean, Sunil Gavaskar had done a far better job of a bad run chase than that.
Here's a stat for you on the subject of that Sunil Gavaskar innings. That, of course, was in India's first ever World Cup game in 1975. Australia's score for the first 2 wickets, I think it was 197 before Wood Smith was out. That was the highest score that a second wicket has fallen against India since that very first World Cup game in 1975 when England took them to the cleaners.
Geeta says, India played boring conservative cricket all through and lost to the first flair opponent. They were the only major team who was batting slower than they did last tournament.
Yep, I don't think they played boring conservative cricket.
They bowled a lot of bounces.
They were very good in the field. I guess they were maybe slightly more functional than you'd expect from that batting line. I think they had a big problem with the fact that Dhoni, who is much diminished, seems to have lost a lot of his power. Only hit 6 sixes before today over the last year and a bit in over 15 ODI innings, which is not many sixes for a Dhoni. He'd still been batting a reasonably long time, but not hitting sixes.
Yeah, and also I wonder, without Rayner being able to bowl as many overs and without them being able to fiddle the fifth over, the fifth bowler, what they used to be able to do is basically just go out there, held the leather and bat. They don't do that anymore because of the changed restrictions, and they were trying to play a different game, and Australia probably just got a few too many. Paul Morrell says, given nobody seems to win away from home in international cricket anymore, is it safe to put my house on Australia? Well, if you live in Australia. Unless it's on a volcano. Don't you know a lot about Australian volcanoes?
I know a lot about Australian volcanoes now, Jared. Yeah, after being asked about them in a comedy gig. Strange things happen in Australia.
We lost the
Don't put your house on Australia. No, it's a one-off game. It's a World Cup final. I think Australia are slight favourites. I think New Zealand are nearly as good. Almost, they're both really good teams. I think they're both miles better than anything from the last World Cup. In fact, I think India would probably beat India from 4 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think if you look at it, New Zealand is probably the better team, but Australia maybe has better players. But I think New Zealand's biggest problem is they've not played a single game in Australia, and then they've got to come here for the final. It seems like, that's not going to help them.
Also, Mitchell Starc is bowling like a volcano.
Abaram says, is it too early to transfer this seed tag to India? I think he means choking. And then,
yes. Too early.
I think, look, there's a lot of, people seem to argue about this a lot, but in order to choke realistically, the sort of standard definition of choking is when you get a long way ahead in the game and then you give it up, Young and Novotny style. In no way did India ever get into the game, let alone ahead of the game. They had a mini fight back where they stopped Australia from scoring 480.
Yes. The problem is now people do tend to see the word lose as the word choke. They are not the same. I cannot emphasise that enough, as anyone who's ever got food stuck in their throat would be able to testify. There could be no team who's choked in this tournament. We're obsessed with chokes.
Asama says, since Indian players were in Australia for ages, can they apply for Australian citizenship? Well, Dhoni did say 20 more days and they get citizenship, but Russell Crowe recently didn't get citizenship, so, you know, weird things happen in Australia.
Yeah, but he's technically Roman, I think.
Is that what the problem was?
That was his problem. Yeah.
Look, I've been here as long as the Indians, so, you know, my performance hasn't... Well, I'm in bed, actually, at the moment, doing Polemic Right. Yeah, a bit like India. This is basically my version of not putting the bat in when I'm going for a quick single like Dhoni just did.
That was strange, wasn't it? Just seemed an odd thing to do, to decelerate shortly before the stumps.
And not put your bat out?
Not, yeah.
Ross Stone says, were India slightly undercooked by having a too easy a path to the semi-final?
No, I don't think they were undercooked, but it's clearly a different matter playing a better team. So, no, I think they were playing well, and they bowled all right. I think they were up against a much better batting team, and they started batting very well, then made some mistakes, and that was the game done. So, no, I don't think they were undercooked. If anything, they were overcooked, because they've been here since about 1974.
Michael Hounslow says, is it an ICC regulation to say Shikhar Dhawan's full name? Shikhar Dhawan?
Shikhar Dhawan, yeah, that's... I think it doesn't make him sound like a 1970s disco diva.
Ruin Silver says, if Clark a liability, can't catch. Who was it, Chandimal, who dropped himself at the last World T20 in Sri Lanka won? So clearly that's what Clark has to do. It was interesting today because there was at no point in the innings where it really looked like Australia wanted him to come in.
No, but if they'd been, say, 20 for 2, then they would have wanted him to come in.
Yeah, so I'm calling him a roaming anchor, which doesn't make any sense, but it's a lot of like they work out where they need him to go. I think if they looked at their innings again today, he probably should have came in when Maxwell did, and then Maxwell would have come in slightly later. But yeah, I think George Bailey's a better batsman in this sort of game. Daniel Norcross says, what is the least inane question asked of a captain in an on-interview pitch during this World Cup? I kind of like that you need to use 2 hashtags and a Twitter profile just to ask a question, and then sometimes you're not even sure who's going to win, so you just have to ask a generic question that can go to either team, and generally the results are, you know, horrendous and everyone wants to bomb them.
I'm not sure you would necessarily want captains to be asked a non-inane question straight after a game. You know, so, MS Dhoni, you've just lost in the World Cup semi-final. What do you think the UN should be doing about the Syrian crisis? Answer the question, Dhoni! You've got to stop dodging this issue. You're a figurehead.
We'll see you next time.